Hey everyone, Lee here from the 3D Modeler. Welcome back. This is part 2 of creating a sleek, production-ready sofa in 3ds Max. We'll transform our 3D model with stunning textures. So, if you are ready to bring your model to life, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. In 3ds Max, we'll start the texture process by unwrapping our sofa model. Now we'll start by unwrapping the main body of the sofa. So let's select the main body of the sofa, Alt Q to isolate it, press F to go to the front view, then press F4 to enable the edges faces mode. Then in the modify panel, let's go to the low poly model layer. Then let's add a new unwrap UVW modifier to it. Now I will divide the UV of our model using UV seam lines. And to do so, let's go to the edge mode. And I will select this edge loop by double clicking on this edge like this, and I will use this option here, which is convert edge selection to seams. Now we have created our first seam line. Then I will select this edge loop like this and convert edge to seam. Then I will select this edge loop like this, convert edge to seam. Then I will select this edge loop like this, convert edge to seam. Then I will select this edge loop and this edge loop, convert edge to seams. Then finally I will select this edge loop like this and convert edge to seam. Now, as you can see, we have divided the UV of our model into a group of UV elements using UV seam lines. Now, back to the front view. Now, let's go to the polygon mode by pressing shortcut 3. Then I will use the quick peel option. This will open the UV editor window. Let's adjust its position like this. As you can see, using the quick peel divided the UV of our model into a group of UV elements based on the seam lines we created. Now let's create a new V-Ray material like this. Let's add a checker map to the diffusion slot. Increase the tiling to 20 by 20. Let's apply it to our model and let's adjust the position of our model in the perspective viewport like this. And now let's arrange the position of our UV elements in the UV space. Now let's enable select by element and let's start arranging the position of our UV elements. And now after finishing arranging all the UV elements, Ctrl A to select all the UV elements, then let's scale them down a little bit like this and move them inside the UV space like this. Now let's close the UV editor window and now let's increase the tiling of our checker map to 30 by 30. And as you can see, the main body of sofa is perfectly unwrapped. Let's exit the isolation mode. And as you can see, the unwrapping process of the main body of the sofa is done. Now let's unwrap the seat cushion. So let's select our seat cushion, Alt Q to isolate it. And let's go to the low poly model layer and we'll apply a new unwrap UVW modifier to it. And now let's create our UV seam lines. So I will go to the edge mode, select this edge loop and convert edge to seam. I will also select this edge loop and convert edge to seam. And I will also select this edge loop like this and convert edge to seam. Now let's use the quick peel option. And as you can see, we still need to make some cleaning at this area here. So I will select this group of edges and I will deselect these edges like this. And I will use the break option. Now let's use the quick peel option again. And now let's start arranging the position of our UV element. So I will select this UV element, rotate it like this. And then I will select this UV element, rotate it like this, and this UV element and rotate it like this. Now let's use the back normalized option and let's close our UV editor window. And now let's apply our checker material to our seed cushion. And let's exit the isolation mode. And as you can see, let's add our checker material to our seed cushion instant like this. And as you can see, the unwrapping process of our seed cushion is done. Using the same unwrapping technique, I will unwrap the rest of our sofa model and I will be right. We are back, and as you can see, I have finished the unwrapping process of all the objects of our sofa model. But as you can see, we don't have a uniform scale UV elements across our model. And to deal with this problem, I will select all the velvet objects of our sofa model and I will apply a new unwrap UVW modifier to them. But before doing anything, I will select the main body of our sofa and I will move our new unwrap modifier beneath the turbo smooth modifier like this. The same process for the cushions, like this, like this, and for the seat cushions, like this. Now let's select all the velvet objects of our sofa and let's open the UV editor window. Now I will select all the UV elements and I will use the back normalized option like this. Now let's close the UV editor window and as you can see, now we have a uniform scale UV elements across our model and we can say that the unwrapping process of our sofa model is done and we are ready to start the texturing process of our sofa. And by the way, if you want to learn how to model this sleek modern sofa in 3ds Max, starting from the concept we created in Leonardo AI until the final product, you can watch part 1 of our series and I will leave the link for you in the description below. I started our texturing process by placing our sofa model in Standard Studio setup, and as you can see, I have added a blanket using the cloth modifier to our sofa model, which will be used to give a pop of color and texture. And I have created two materials. The first one, which will be the velvet material, which will be applied to the main body of the sofa, and the second one is a multi-sub-object material, which will be applied to the leg of the sofa. And as you can see, the leg of sofa consists of two parts. The first part will be covered in velvet and the second part is made of brass. Now let me show you how I assigned different material ID to our sofa leg. So let's select our sofa leg, isolate it, go to the front view, and in the modifier panel, let's delete this unwrap modifier. Now let's apply a new unwrap modifier to our sofa leg. And in the polygon mode, I will select this group of polygons using the grow option to select the upper part of our sofa leg. And I will assign a new material ID to it, which will be 2. Then using shortcut Ctrl I to select the lower part of our sofa leg, and I will give it a material ID 1. And as you can see, now we have assigned material ID 2 to the upper part of our sofa leg and material ID 1 to the lower part of our sofa leg. Now exit the isolation mode and back to our camera view. Now let's create our velvet material. So let's open the material editor window and let's assign a V-Ray material to our velvet material. And let's add a fall-off map to its diffusion slot like this. And now let's convert this black color into a dark red color like this. Drag and drop it to the white color as a copy. Then convert it to a light red saturated color like this. Now let's open the material render window, and the type of fall-off we are using is perpendicular parallel, and the fall-off direction is camera z-axis. Now let's adjust the curve of the fall-off. So I will select all the points of the curve, right click and convert them to Bezier corner. And now let's adjust the arms of the Bezier like this and like this. And now let's drag it and drop our velvet material to the velvet part of our multi-sub object material as an instance and press OK. And now let's make a test render. And as you can see in the render viewport, by only using the fall-off map, we are starting to get the velvet look we are looking for. Now let's elevate our velvet material, and I will do so using dirt maps and compositing here in 3ds Max. So back to our velvet material, click on fall off, and I will choose composite. Keep old map as submap and press OK. Now we'll start compositing here in 3ds Max with our first layer assigned to our fall off map. Now let's create a new layer, and we assign a new bitmap to it. And in the bitmap, we'll choose our first dirt map and press open. Now let's increase its styling to 5 by 5. And we'll change the blending mode to overlay and the opacity to 20%. Now let's make a test render. And as you can see in the render viewport, using our first dirt map gives our material the crushed velvet look we are looking for, which gives the material a rich textured appearance. Now let's add a new layer and let's assign a new bitmap to it. And let's select our second dirt map, press open, and let's increase its styling to 5 by 5. And let's change its blending mode to overlay, and we will reduce its opacity to 10%. Now let's add our final layer. Let's assign a new bitmap to it, and let's select our final dirt map, and let's increase its styling to 4 by 4. Let's change its blending mode to overlay, and let's reduce the opacity to 20%. And now let's make a test render. And as you can see in the render viewport, by adding our dirt maps to our material, give it the rich and texture appearance of the crushed velvet look we are looking for. Now let's make some adjustment to our fall-off map. So let's go to our fall-off map, disable show end result. I want to increase the contrast and make it more sharp. So I'll start adjusting the curve of the fall-off, and I will move this Bezier arm a little bit like this, and this Bezier arm a little bit like this. I will also make this red color more light like this, and let's make a test render. Yeah, I prefer this setting more. And to have full control on our velvet material, we will use this option here, which will add a color correct to our texture. Now we can choose any color we want from the hue slide. I will go with -90. You can also control the saturation of our texture from the saturation slide here. I will go with -45. You can also control the brightness and the contrast of our texture from the advanced setting of the lightness. I will increase the contrast to 0.9 and I will make it brighter, so I will change this number from 100 to 140. And now let's make a test render. And as you can see, now we have full control on the color of our velvet material. Just choose the color you want and change the setting in the color correct of our texture. I do like this color a lot. Now let's add bumpiness to our velvet material. So back to our V-Ray material. And in the bump slot, let's add a mix map. In the mix map, we will mix a bump map and a cellular map. So let's bring our bump map like this. Open. And as you can see, our bump map is a bump texture for a velvet fabric. Let's increase its styling to 20 by 20. And now let's add our cellular map. Let's disable show end result. And I'll change this color to black and this color to white. So to increase the contrast, and I will reduce its size to 0.001. And now the mix amount will be 90%. 90% will be from our cellular map and 10% from our bump map. Now let's increase the bumpness from 30 to 50 and let's make a test render. And as you can see, by adding our bump map to the velvet material, it gives it the richness and textured appearance of the crushed velvet material we are looking for. And as you can see, our velvet material is getting more and more realistic. And for the final touch, let's add our bump map as an instance in the displacement slot. So let's drag and drop our bump map in the displacement slot as an instance, and let's reduce the displacement to a minor value of 0.2. Now let's make a final render. And as you can see, we have finished creating our super realistic velvet material using V-Ray here in 3ds Max. And we have achieved the rich textured appearance of the crushed velvet material we are aiming to. And by the way, if you want to learn how to create this amazing sleek modern sofa here in 3ds Max, starting from creating the concept in Leonardo AI till the final product, you can watch part 1 of our series, and I will leave the link for you in the description below. Now let's create our brush material, which will be applied to the lower part of our sofa leg. So let's go to the material assigned to our sofa leg, and let's select the material assigned to material ID 1, and let's convert it to a V-Ray material. Now I will give you the best combination of the diffusion and reflection colors, which will give you the best result for a brush material. So for the diffusion color, I will go with the color number 352E20. 22. And for the reflection color, I will go with the color number 9A 77554, and let's increase our Fresnel to 50. Let's open our material render window, and as you can see, using this combination of the diffusion and the reflection colors, we were able to achieve the best color appearance for our brush material. And to elevate our brush material, let's add a scratched metal texture map to our reflection and glossiness slot. So let's add a new bitmap to our reflection slot, and let's select our scratched metal texture map, press open. And now let's reduce the effect of our texture map to 5%. Now let's drag and drop it in the glossiness slot as an instance, and let's reduce its effect to 30%. I will also reduce the glossiness of our material to 0.9, and also let's increase the tiling of our texture map to 3x3. And now let's make a test render for our brush material. And as you can see, using this combination of diffusion and reflection colors and applying a scratched metal texture map to our reflection and glossiness slot, we were able to achieve a super realistic brush material. Now let's create a silk material for our decorative blanket. So let's assign a new material to our blanket, and let's convert it to a V-Ray material. In the diffuse slot, let's add a fall of map, and we are going to use the fall of map to achieve the silk look we are looking for. Now I will give you the best setting for the fall of curve to achieve the silk look. First, I will move this point downward like this, and this point upward like this until it's parallel to the other point. Now let's use the add point tool, and I will add a point at this point and a point at this point. Let me open the material render window and back to our moving tool, and I will move this point upward like this. Now right click on this point and convert it to Bezier smooth, and then select this point and convert to Bezier corner, and I will move this Bezier arm like this. Then I will select this point, right click, Bezier smooth, and adjust it a little bit like this. I can also move this point upward like this to increase the contrast in our material. Now let's make a test render for our material. And as you can see, using this setting for the fall of mix curve, we were able to achieve the silk look we are looking for. And to have the same color setting as our velvet material, let's go to the fall of map of our velvet material, and let's copy our dark light color and paste it to the black color of our silk material, and let's copy the light red color and paste it to the white color of the fall off of our silk material. But I will increase the lightness of our red color because the silk material need to have a high contrast between the light and the dark color. Now let's add a color correction to our fall of map, keep alt map as submap. And now let's change the hue to -90 and the saturation to -45. And from the advanced setting of the lightness, let's increase the contrast to 0.9 and the brightness to 140. Now let's make a test render. And as you can see, now we have full control on the color of our silk material. And as you can see, we have achieved a super realistic silk material just by using a single fall of map. Now let's create a silk material with velvet pattern. And to do so, let's select a new material, assign it to our blanket, and let's convert it to a V-Ray blend material like this. And in the base material, let's drag and drop our velvet material as an instant to the base material, and let's drag and drop our silk material to our first material in the blend. Now let me open the material render window, and in the blend amount, let's add a bitmap, and let's select our pattern map like this. Let's show it on our blanket. Let's increase the tiling to 2 by 2. I like this setting, and now let's make a test render. And as you can see, we were able to achieve a silk material with a velvet pattern using V-Ray blend material. Perfect. Now let's make a final render. And as you can see in our final render, we were able to create a rich silk material using fall of map, and we were able to create a silk material with velvet pattern using V-Ray blend material. And our final result is super realistic. And finally, let's create a capitone velvet material. And to do so, first of all, I will copy our velvet material to a new material slot, and I will call it velvet 2. And since we are going to assign our capitone velvet material to our quotient, so let's select our quotient and assign our new material to them. Then in the modifier panel, let's apply a new unwrap modifier to our quotient, and let's open the UV editor window, select all UV elements and back normalized. I will also increase the size of the UV elements of each quotient until they cover the whole UV space like this. And now, since we have increased the size of the UV elements of our quotients, we need to reduce the tiling of the dirt maps in our new material so they won't appear busy or repetitive. So let's reduce the tiling of each dirt map to 1 by 1. By 1. And the last one. And now we are ready to start creating our capitone velvet material. The creation of such material is all based on its bump map. So let's go to the bump map, but first let's reduce the tiling of our bump texture to 10 by 10. And since I have a normal map of a squared capitone, so let's apply a V-Ray normal map to our bump map. Keep alt map as submap. And let's move the bump map to the bump slot. And let's bring our normal map. Like this, open. Let's open our material render window and let's increase the tiling to 5 by 5. As you can see, we need to flip the green and the red color of our normal map, so enable flip red and flip green. As you can see, once we have added our normal map, the capitone starts to appear. And to elevate the look of our material, let's make some adjustment to our bump map. So let's go to the bump map and let's apply a new composite. Keep old map as submap. And let's create a new layer. And in this new layer, we will apply a mix map. And in the mix map, we will control the mix using a texture map. Let's bring it like this, press open and show texture in viewport, and let's increase the tiling to 5x5 like that of the normal map. Now let's disable show end result, and in the black slot let's bring a dirt map, this dirt map, press open, then let's drag and drop it to the white slot, and let's rotate the copy 90 degrees like this. And this is the look of our new mix map. Let's adjust the blending mode of our new layer to overlay. And now let's create a new layer, and in this new layer let's bring our stitching texture. Press open, increase the tiling to 5x5, and let's adjust the blending mode to overlay. Now let's enable show end result, and as you can see, by making some adjustment to our bump map, we have elevated the look of our capitone velvet material. Now let's make a final render. As you can see from our final render, we were able to achieve the capitone velvet look we are looking for. And to take our material to the next level, let's add a silk stitching to our capitone material. And to do so, let's create a new V-Ray blend material using our new created material. Let's move our velvet capitone material to the first blending slot, and let's bring our silk material to the base material, copy, and let's add the blending texture, which will be the stitching texture we have here. Press open, let's increase the tiling to 5x5, and let's increase the brightness of our silk material. Change it from 140 to 200. And now let's make a new render for our material. Now, when you zoom in, you can see the silk stitching on our capitone. Although it is a fine detail, but it elevated our material to a realistic level. And finally, as you can see, we have achieved a realistic capitone velvet material using V-Ray here in 3ds Max, and the final result is super realistic. Thanks for joining me on this series journey. If you enjoyed it, show some love by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Your support inspires me to create more awesome content for you. Can't wait to see what we expect next. Thanks for watching.